Welcome back to Political Beliefs and Behaviors, Participation in Politics. So in this particular section of the course, we've looked at the various ways that individuals can participate in political life, so the behaviors that individuals engage in, from passive to active forms to forms that can be taken online versus offline. We've then looked at voting behavior itself and trying to understand some of the factors that influence us, whether it's long-term socializing factors at the top of the funnel that we looked at in the last lecture versus voting intention that we looked at in the last lecture as well. Now we're going to look at some salient factors, some important factors that ultimately influence whether or not we'll participate at all, and what factors ultimately encourage more participation or less participation in politics. So who participates in politics? Well, what we know is, according to the research, those with more time on their hands, those with more free time. So oftentimes voting or petitioning the government, going to a town hall, it takes time. So those who have more time ultimately will be more likely to participate in politics. Someone who might be working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet probably will not have a lot of time to participate in the political process. Second, higher family income. This is important for the resources that individuals have. Higher family income is correlated, for example, with work and with free time as well. So higher family income will be important. Those who make more money, in general, participate more in politics. Next, more highly educated individuals. More highly educated individuals believe that they have the knowledge necessary to participate in the political process. Also, they might have encountered individuals who have shaped their political beliefs and behaviors. That will ultimately then potentially influence their participation in the political process. Another recent addition to this particular list is if individuals had high school civics activities, so for example, student government, or if you encountered a We the People program that introduced you to civic affairs. We talked about, when we looked at attitudes and beliefs about political life, that these types of civics-related activities are very important for how attitudes are formed. They're also very important for thinking about our later participation in politics, whether or not we vote, whether or not we petition government, whether or not we read the news. These are very important for understanding later participation. Next is the civic skills that are acquired as an adult in non-political places. For example, jobs, organizations, or religious life. These types of civic skills will ultimately influence political participation. If you have to speak in your job, or if your job exposes you to public affairs information, this will ultimately have a very different socializing force on an individual, a very different effect on one's individual level of participation than if someone is in an occupation where they are not exposed to these types of skills. Next is the more politically efficacious individuals. So in our political attitudes lecture, we talked about political efficacy, the belief that you can influence government and that you have the knowledge to participate, that you can influence government in some type of way. More politically efficacious individuals are much more likely to participate in the political process. Finally, those who are more interested in politics are more likely to participate. So this makes a lot of sense. If an individual is interested in sports, they're probably more likely to watch sports and/or attend a sporting event. If you're interested in politics, you're probably more likely to attend to political news as well as go to the voting booth. So interest is also very important in understanding whether or not individuals participate in the political process. What we also know is that, according to recent research, that how politically extreme we are, the beliefs that we hold, and how extreme those beliefs are, matters for understanding political participation as well. So more ideologically extreme individuals, so these would be people who consider themselves very liberal, very progressive, or very conservative. These individuals at the ends of the political spectrum of ideology are much more likely to participate in the political process. So political polarization, where, if you remember from our political attitudes talk, is the strengthening of attitudes in the original direction, leads in some instances to greater amounts of political participation. So here, for example, are charts from the Pew Research Center looking at 2014 data. And what it shows is that individuals who are more consistently liberal and/or more consistently conservative are much more likely to participate in the political process, also much more likely to donate money. So these charts are a nice, helpful reminder to you that Ideology, partisan ID, and how strong you hold your political ideology and how strong you hold your partisan ID ultimately will also influence whether or not you participate in the political process. So this section of the course has looked at political participation in the United States, understanding a general overview of political participation, online versus offline participation, more active versus passive forms of political participation. We then moved on to talk about voting and understanding what are the voting dynamics that lead individuals to make certain vote choices compared to other vote choices, as well as how the process has been opened up in the United States in general over time, and how the complexion or the nature of the electorate has changed over time. Finally, what we've looked at is we've looked at the factors that come into play for determining whether or not an individual will participate in politics. So their levels of education, as well as other socialization forces that might come into play, or how efficacious or interested they are in the political process. All of these are important for understanding political participation. So that ends this section of the course. I look forward to seeing you in other lectures to come.